Alright, so hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and update 25.6 just dropped and brought a bunch of Warframe augment changes. Mostly buffs. Well, basically just buffs. So the first augment on the menu is Hysterical Assault, which augments Hysteria for Valkyr. Now by default, this augment allows you to aim down sights and press the attack button to leap onto a nearby enemy when you're affected by Hysteria. But now with this update, you can leap onto enemies that are really far away. They really increase the range of this, which is awesome because it feels much better. And there is also a line that says let invulnerability linger for half a second when aiming to prevent getting downed immediately in high damage areas. And I'm not entirely sure what that does actually. Next up, we have Rising Storm, which is a Bladestorm augment for Ashe that would basically just give you combo duration, but it now counts each hit from each clone towards your combo counter, which is really good, and it also gives you extra 10 seconds on your combo duration, which is really strong as well. Moving on, we have Titanic Rumbler for Atlas. Now, what this augment did is it would give you one big Rumbler instead of multiple smaller ones, and while it still does that, the Rumbler now does more damage and is faster, and you can reactivate the ability, and the Rumbler will smack the ground, which will knock enemies down and taunt them, forcing them to attack him instead of you or your allies. After that, we have Hallowed Eruption for Bruberon, which allows you to detonate your hallowed ground, dealing all the remaining damage to the enemy standing on it, but it also now increases the duration of hallowed ground by 100% and gives it 100% status chance. After that, we have Furious Javelin for Excalibur's Radial Javelin, and what this augment used to do is just give you extra melee damage for every enemy you hit with Radial Javelin. And it still does exactly just that, but it gives you even more melee damage for an even longer duration than before. Up next, we have the Tidal Impunity augment for Hydroid's Tidal Surge. Now, what this augment does is it makes Hydroid's Tidal Surge remove all status effects from you and any ally hit by Tidal Surge, and then make you and all those allies immune to status effects for a duration. And all they did is just increase the duration, so the augment is still pretty weak. Then we have Magnetized Discharge for Mag's Magnetize, and this would previously allow you to detonate Magnetize by recasting the ability on the target, and it would also give that explosion 50% chance to disarm all enemies it hits. And while once again it does exactly just that, they also added a passive to the mod that increases the range of Magnetize by I do believe 65% while the mod is equipped. Then we have two augments for Mirage. The first one is for Sleight of Hand, which is the ability that allows you to trap like consoles and lockers. It's called Explosive Leisure Domain, and what it does is it allows you to trap ammo pickups and ore pickups as well. And all they did with this one is increase the damage and status chance when an enemy triggers one of these traps. And the second one is Total Eclipse, which allows you to share your Eclipse buff to nearby allies, and all they did here is just increase the range at which you will share your buff. Moving on, we have Piercing Roar for Rhino's Roar. Now, this would previously make your roar hit nearby enemies for 150 puncture damage and proc puncture on them. And it, once again, still does that, but it also allows you to recast Roar while it's already active, which is really cool. They made it so that your duration mods will affect the duration of the puncture proc, and it also staggers enemies when you hit them with the Roar now. Next on the menu, we have the Contagion Cloud augment for Saren's Toxic Lash. Now what this augment does is it leaves behind little toxic clouds when you kill enemies while under the effects of Toxic Lash. And what changed here is that the clouds will now do more damage over a larger area, which is good, but they will also proc when you kill the enemy with a damage over time effect, whereas previously you would have to deal the killing blow yourself. Then we have the Transistor Shield augment for Volt's Electric Shield, which would basically allow other allies to pick up your shield, and it would also stack your passive based on a percentage of the damage absorbed by the shield. And the change here is that it doesn't drain extra energy when an ally picks up a shield, and it stacks your passive faster now. Next, we have the Target Fixation augment for Zephyr's Tailwind. Now, what this would do is it would increase the damage of your Tailwind by 50% for every enemy you hit with Tailwind. This is the not really flying kind of dash, right? And what it would do is just stack this damage bonus up and up and up until you would hit the ground again, and as soon as you touch the ground, the buff would be gone. And what they did here is they doubled the damage bonus, so it now gives you 100% more damage with Tailwind for every enemy you hit, but you also now have 2 seconds while you're on the ground before the buff is gone. So if you're fast enough, you can fly back up into the air and keep the buff. Up next, we have 5 augments that are essentially the same. It's Fireball Frenzy, Freeze Force, Smite Infusion, Venom Dose, and Shock Trooper for Ember, Frost, Oberon, Saren, and Vault respectively. And they are the I'm gonna hit my ally with my first shitty ability to give them bonus damage based on the type of damage I'm doing. So hit for Ember, cold for Frost, and yada yada yada. And what they did here is they made it so that you don't have to hit your allies with this ridiculous single target ability that you're gonna miss 90% of the time, and you can instead hold the ability button down, which will send a radial pulse out from you, and anyone hit with this pulse, including you, will get the buff. And no, the pulse does not do damage to enemies. If you want to damage enemies, you have to use the single target version of it. And we are slowly nearing the end with the Sonic Fracture Augment for Banshee's Sonic Boom. And all they did here is basically just fix it, because previously if the ability failed to ragdoll the enemy, you wouldn't actually remove their armor, and that is now fixed. They also tweaked the Smoke Shadow Augment for Ash's smoke screen, which allowed you to give invisibility to nearby allies if they were standing like right on top of you, and they finally increased the range of it so you don't have to stack on top of each other for this to work. And the final change was to the Piercing Navigator Augment for Ivara's Navigator, which normally just gives you 10% extra crit chance up to a maximum of 50% whenever you hit an enemy with a projectile. And what they did is they kept the augment the same, but also added 3 meters of punch through to the projectile. Now the way this works is a little bit weird and it feels kind of odd in the beginning, but you can just straight up fly through walls and you can pierce up to 3 meters. The best way to explain this, I think, is that if you have 3 pillars, each of which is 1 meter thick, you can fly through all 3 of them, but anything you hit after that will stop the projectile right away because you already pierced 3 meters worth of terrain. And that is pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope it was helpful and I will see you next time. Bye bye.